they just released the final candidate for macOS 26 Tahoe. And of course, because that's the release candidate, which isn't being released until the 15th of this month, but it's the release candidate. So I decided to go ahead and install it and see how things are working with it, with Logic. Now, for the most part, everything has been super smooth. I haven't had any of the projects I've opened crashing. I haven't tried every single plugin, but for the most part, all of the ones I use on a daily basis are working. And of course, so far, all of the Logic things are working that are built into Logic, but there are a few interesting things that are in OS 26 that I thought I would talk about. So the first thing would be we have a new icon for the audio MIDI setup utility. This is what it looks like. I don't know if this is a hint at anything to come. I wish it was a hint for maybe there's a new, controller that Apple was going to release that might have some of this color scheme. The old one was just a black and white keyboard. This one has a lot more character. Of course, with the new liquid glass theme in macOS 26, this may or may not just be a side effect of that. I don't know. But when I opened up the actual utility, the setup, there are mostly all the same things, but a couple things that are different that I wanted to talk about for just a second. First of all, you can see that a lot of this, if I scroll this up, you can see the transparency there, the glass that they talk about. But I would say the MIDI Studio is essentially the same, a couple different buttons that look a little different, and updated menu structure. But in the actual audio devices, this is quite a bit different, and it's a lot easier to actually read and understand. So for instance, I have my SSL 12 here, and you can see input and output just like we had before. You have the names of the actual inputs and outputs according to the driver that we have for this. But for instance, if I wanted to come through here and say, there's the primary, analog 1, 2, 3, 4, talkback, loopback, and all of the ADATs. So say on the ADATs, I have these specific devices connected to my ADAT device. Maybe this one is my Model D, right? I can actually change the name now and inside the actual audio devices. Cool. And from there, this actually does play a part into Logic a little bit. If I come into Logic, go into my Mix menu and go to I/O labels, and then I scroll down, and actually this won't work yet. Let me change one thing. So we actually have to go to that device. Input device, SSL 12. It'll apply when I close that. Mix, I/O labels. Now you'll see on the left side, we have all of these ones that are just the default Logic. And then in the middle, these can be provided by the driver. So now I can select input 9 to be the input by driver. Close that. And say I come down, let's make a new just audio track. It's a mono signal, mono. Click on the input, and now you'll see Model D shows up there, but it also shows up on the input of that. So I can customize using the audio MIDI setup a little bit easier, and then that will play into each of the different pieces of software you use with this. This doesn't just work for Logic. This now has always been, but continues to be the hub for your audio devices with any workstation on OS, Mac OS. And now it's just a little easier to customize some of those things. The rest of this is pretty much the same. We still have our different devices. And so for the most part, not a lot of changes there. Let's wrap this up by talking about just a couple best practices for when this is actually released next week. If you're in the middle of any type of project that is like a client project or something that you really care about that's not done, should you update to macOS 26? No. There's no way in the world that you should do that because that's day one. And even though they've done a beta test, it's not likely that they've found every single bug out there. In fact, I was just noticing a bug in the audio MIDI setup where if I put this into the list view right here, I can say show all. I'm just going to do online. And now these are the ones that are online, but it still says show all. And I can't get it to go back in the same way. It's just really strange. That's like a little bit of a glitch that could be better. It's not showing which one's connected. That's not a big bug. That's a small little visual thing that's a little bit quirky. Great. But overall, you might have plugins and instruments and third-party things that don't work. We might have things with Logic that don't work. We are expecting that there will be some sort of Logic update in the near future to just address the update, partially because if you look at all the other Apple apps, they've got these new icons which have that depth to them with this new operating system look, and the Logic Pro icon has not been updated yet. And so if nothing else, we'll get one that likely updates the icon. And at the same time, we might get bug fixes and other things. We might get a whole new version, depending on how hard the Logic team has been working or how successful they've been updating things. But maybe we'll just get a really small one that'll do that. In the same way, the Logic Pro for iPad is going to need a much bigger update in some ways. They didn't get the 11.2.2 that we did. They didn't update the exact same time. But now that the iPad actually has a menu bar, the Logic Pro on the iPad doesn't have anything to go in the menu bar yet, and so they need to sort some of that out. So we're likely to get a much bigger update there. Other small things that I've noticed, these are operating system things that trickle down. But if you look in our menus, you'll see some nice little icons that give you a little bit different idea of what's happening. That's like the open icon, but in reality, those are just giving us some visual cues, and it's not all across the board. I feel like all of those look different. The menus look different. They have the rounded edges. We don't actually have a menu bar at all. If I hide Logic, you'll see that it's just screen and all these little floating icons or words. And those, you can turn the menu bar back on in the system settings, but you don't have to. I'm going to leave mine off for now. Another big change is that we don't have the Launchpad anymore. We just have this apps option, and that brings open essentially like Spotlight with categories. You'll see Logic Pros in the top row because I've used it, but I believe it's under Creativity is where that is stored, and so you can get to it from there. Another nice thing about this, and this is, I think, is pretty interesting. You can see other apps on here from my phone that I can connect to, and it will load up the phone sharing app, and the phone will just pop up right on the screen. I don't think I have the Logic control app on here, but it would be interesting to see if we could control Logic using the iPhone app on the Mac. Not that you'd ever want to, just more of a kind of a nerd alert kind of thing. So if you need to find your app, you can just type in the first couple letters, load it up, and then you can close out of there. What are we going to be looking at for the next couple weeks? We're going to see if there's any bugs introduced. We're going to see if there's any improvements in processing or efficiency with Logic. For the most part, we shouldn't expect too much because it's the Logic app that needs the updating more than the operating system. But so far, I feel very, very good about this. The last thing I'll say is that this week, we've had a couple additional apps that have come out that are iPad apps that now work inside Logic. They updated them to work. So keep your eye on these all the time. For instance, we have the VCS3 instrument. Now, this is something I use on my iPad, but now we have the version is now compatible with Logic Pro and desktop, and I didn't have to pay anything for it. I just had to do the update and then download it in the Mac App Store. And so this is a really, really cool option for doing some synthesis type things with a really amazing classic vintage model of a synthesizer that's just been incredible. So keep that in mind that this is out there. And with this update, the update cycle, sometimes we get little bonuses like this with things that work. And I think it's amazing. So keep that in mind. Hope this was useful just looking at this. Do I know if your system is going to work with Mac OS 26? Of course not. But don't be stupid. Don't try to make this fit. Upload or download this update only when you know that you can take the time to sort through issues. And if you have a piece of hardware or other software, go to their websites and see if they say you should update or not. Because if they don't update right away and you can't live without it, then you shouldn't update either. Okay, that's it. Hope this was useful. Talk to you later. We'll be doing more videos as we learn more about this new update.